Video game publisher Blizzard Entertainment has suspended the winner of a gaming championship after he voiced solidarity with Hong Kong protesters. So now the massive protests had actually begun back in March. So the aim of the protests is to oppose the introduction of something called the Fugitive Offenders Amendment that was proposed by the Hong Kong government. So that bill essentially would allow local authorities to detain and extradite supposed criminal fugitives who are wanted in territories to which Hong Kong does not currently have extradition agreements. Now that includes Taiwan, and mainland China. And I'm so sorry that I keep butchering these, and I don't know why. But okay, so now let me give you some more information about this, right? So now the protests started, I guess, fairly small, relatively, but actually grew massive in June. And yes, there has been instances of violence. You had instances of police brutality against the protesters, different groups getting involved, etc. Right? And so, what the protesters are fighting for, though, ultimately, is autonomy and civil liberties against what appears to be encroaching Chinese authoritarianism. And so, now where Blizzard comes into play is that after winning a Hearthstone Grandmasters match on October 6th. By the way, I've never played Hearthstone or Hearthstone. I have played World of Warcraft. I do play Diablo, and so I am a gamer, and so I am definitely familiar with esports. And so this is Hong Kong-based Chung Blitzchung in Y. There's no way I said that correctly. But after he had won this championship, which is a really, really big thing, right? He used his post-game interview to support the protests, which I think is absolutely fine. I think it's super ballsy because he is based in Hong Kong. So now, Chung appeared on the Taiwanese broadcast wearing a gas mask after his win against South Korean player Jang Don-honjae. No way I said that right. So now, that's significant, right? Last week, Hong Kong government issued a ban on face masks. So you can't wear face masks when you're out in public now because demonstrators in Hong Kong have been wearing them to protect themselves not only from tear gas, but also government reprisal to protect their identities. And so a face mask is now a symbol of protests, right? So now this guy, Blitz Chung, he wears this mask on this interview, takes it off, and says essentially, liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our time. So that's, of course, a slogan associated with these protests. So now, right after this had happened, the Hearthstone broadcast cut away. Get it off the air, get it off the air. And a recording of the interview on the Taiwanese stream had also been taken offline. So now, okay, seems to be they had a little bit of a problem with that, which, look, kind of a benign statement, but then when you realize how involved Activision Blizzard is with the Chinese government, well, then it starts to become clear why they did this. So now, by the way, Blitzchung is from Hong Kong, right? That's his home. So in a statement to Invent Global, Chung said this, quote, as you know, there are serious protests in my country now. My call on stream was just another form of participation in the protest that I wish to grab more attention. I put so much effort in that social movement in the past few months that I sometimes couldn't focus on preparing my Grandmaster match. Well, didn't seem too effective because he did really well. He continued, I know what my action on stream means. It could cause me a lot of trouble, even my personal safety in real life, but I think it is my duty to say something about the issue. I love it. I do. So using his platform, using his win to call out something, that is a huge problem right now. And that's, of course, Chinese basically intervention in Hong Kong and the crushing of people's civil liberties. So, but you know who didn't love it? Activision Blizzard. Now, Activision Blizzard has a giant Chinese audience. World of Warcraft actually, look, and it's not just World of Warcraft. There are video games, there are movies that do incredibly well in China that make these corporations billions and billions of dollars. So now, World of Warcraft, by the way, millions of subscribers in China. And so what they've done, of course, since Chinese government has control over all the internet, they can block who, you know, basically what people see, what they play, how long they play. I mean, the censorship there is just completely insane. They had blocked World of Warcraft there before because the undead showed bones. Can't have that imagery. So Blizzard completely changed their local client in China in order to reflect that. So now the undead look completely different there. Monsters look completely different there in the game. I mean, it's crazy the amount of censorship and control that the government has when it comes to video games and other media in China. So now, if Blizzard offends the Chinese government in some way, they can be banned and they lose out billions and billions of dollars. So now, they've embraced censorship. How so? Because they've suspended Chung from Hearthstone Esports for at least a year, originally banned him, and has removed him from the Grandmasters program. So he's banned from that completely, and he will not receive any prize money earned for this season. So he won legitimately. And yet Blizzard says, I'm sorry, you offended Chinese, and we value money over everything, corporate profits. We don't want to lose that market, so we're going to embrace your we're going to embrace this censorship. And that's what this is about. It's not about the prize money. It's about a large corporation bending to the will of an oppressive regime so they can make a buck. That's what this is about. There is so much wrong going on in the gaming industry right now. I mean, look, I could go on about a whole bunch of issues, right? For example, you've got labor problems when it comes to the gaming industry, crushing their employees, making developers do 70 to 80-hour weeks, stressful conditions, sexual harassment, exploitive practices when it comes to consumers, like lockboxes, unfinished games being released, DLCs. There's a whole lot of issues in gaming. Look at Anthem, for example. Absolute disaster. And so now, to add on to that, you have one of the biggest companies, again, behind Diablo, Warcraft, practicing censorship on behalf of the Chinese Communist government, punishing someone who had an opinion that offends one of their biggest consumer groups. That's what's going on today. And that's why, of course, Blizzard is facing gigantic calls for a boycott online. And you know what? Maybe it's time to support them. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on, and you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.